Everyone in Willow Creek thought little Ava Harper was just a quiet, imaginative 8-year-old. But what she whispered to her teacher that Monday morning changed everything. "I know where the red house is," she said, eyes wide. "That's where they scream at night." Her voice was calm, too calm, like she'd rehearsed it in her head 100 times. The teacher laughed at first, until Ava added, "They bury things in the back. That's what the man told me. But I wasn't supposed to tell." No one could have imagined the storm those few words would unleash. That same afternoon, the principal called Ava's parents, but they never picked up. And by evening, her entire family was missing. Just gone. The front door was wide open. Dinner still warm on the table. Ava's shoes were neatly by the mat, but she was nowhere in sight. Neighbors said they heard nothing. No screams. No struggle. Just silence. And then sirens. Detective Marissa Lane was assigned the case. And the first thing she noticed was the smell. Not of decay, but something worse. Fresh paint. Someone had tried to cover something, and they hadn't done it well. What did Ava mean by the red house? Why was her message delivered just before vanishing? And who was the man she said warned her? Every clue only deepened the mystery. Detective Marissa Lane stood frozen in the Harpers' quiet living room. The family's life had been paused mid-step. Ava's coloring book still open on the couch, the TV flashing a paused cartoon frame, untouched plates on the dinner table. Nothing broken, no signs of forced entry, but everything was wrong. She turned to the officer beside her. "Get forensics in here, now." Marissa's gut had never failed her, and it twisted hard when she saw Ava's tiny jacket still hanging on the wall hook. Ava never went anywhere without it. The first break came from Ava's teacher, Mrs. Collier. She said it like she knew what she saw, the woman said, trembling. Like she'd been keeping it inside for weeks. The phrase "the red house" echoed in Marissa's mind. It wasn't a common expression. But there was an abandoned property on the outskirts of town. Its roof rusted crimson, faded paint peeling like dry skin. Locals avoided it, said it felt off. That night, Marissa drove there alone. The gate was open. Her flashlight flicked across shattered windows, warped wood, and what looked like muddy footprints, small like a child's. She followed them to the back, heart pounding with every step. Then her light caught something buried beneath rotting leaves. A small pink hair clip. It matched the one Ava wore in her school photo. Marissa's breath caught in her throat. "She was here," she whispered. But as she rose to call it in, something creaked behind her. She spun around. Silence. Only the wind and the whisper of shifting trees. Was someone watching? She wasn't alone. She knew she wasn't. The next morning, the red house was swarming with investigators. Forensics dusted every inch, but what they found was chilling. In the basement, hidden behind a false wall, they discovered a tiny room. Bare concrete, a torn mattress, and dozens of crayon drawings taped to the walls. Childlike images of a girl with brown hair, always standing next to a shadowy figure with no face. On the floor lay an old tape recorder. One of the forensic techs pressed play. A child's voice crackled through. "I saw what he did. I wasn't supposed to." It was Ava's voice. Detective Marissa closed her eyes. Whatever Ava had seen, it had terrified her so deeply she recorded it, knowing someone might hear it after. But there was more. One drawing was unlike the others. It showed a man's face, clear, detailed, glasses, a scar on the left cheek, a gold watch. It was someone Ava knew, someone she trusted. The sketch sent a chill through Marissa. She'd seen that face before. In a case file years ago, a man acquitted for lack of evidence. But he was back in town. Why? Marissa raced to her car, her pulse roaring in her ears. If he had Ava, if she was still alive, every second mattered. She just didn't know. He was already watching her. And he wasn't done yet. Marissa drove across town like every traffic light was a ticking bomb. She couldn't stop hearing Ava's voice from that tape. "I saw what he did. I wasn't supposed to." Those words didn't just echo. They clung like a warning, like a child reaching out through time. begging someone to listen. The address she pulled up to belonged to Douglas Heller, a retired school janitor. No criminal record on paper. But 5 years ago, he was the prime suspect in a case involving 2 missing girls. And walked free. No bodies. No evidence. No justice. Now he was back. And Ava had drawn his face. Marissa knocked. No answer. She walked the perimeter, heart pounding. Curtains were drawn tight. The backyard was overgrown. A rusty swing swayed gently, though the wind was still. Then she saw it. A small pink sneaker, half buried in the dirt beneath the porch. Ava's size. Marissa's hand trembled as she called it in. Reinforcements were minutes away, but her gut screamed she couldn't wait. She drew her weapon and stepped inside through the unlocked back door. Silence. Heavy. Stifling. She could feel it in her bones. This house breathed danger. And in the far hallway, she heard it. A soft humming, like a lullaby sung by someone who hadn't known peace in years. The humming stopped the moment Marissa stepped onto the creaking hallway floor. Her breath caught. The air was thick with something sour, mildew, decay, and something she couldn't name but felt in her throat. She edged forward, past walls stained with fingerprints and peeling wallpaper. The flashlight on her shoulder flickered, briefly catching a set of children's drawings taped haphazardly to the wall. Each one crude, frantic, stick figures. A red car, a girl with pigtails standing next to a man, his face crossed out in heavy black. Marissa whispered under her breath, "Ava, what were you trying to tell us?" She reached the basement door. It was slightly ajar. From behind it, the faintest creak of floorboards. She wasn't alone. She pushed it open. The basement smelled worse, damp and earthy, like something had been buried and never meant to be found. There, sitting in the center of the room, was a dollhouse, an exact replica of Ava's home. Inside the tiny replica, 3 dolls, a man, a woman, a little girl in a blue dress, all arranged as if frozen in time. And then, just behind it, was a real-life blue dress, child-sized, laid out on a table. Clean, pressed, waiting. Marissa's voice shook. "What were you planning?" A shadow shifted behind her. Someone whispered. She wasn't supposed to see. Marissa spun around, heart slamming in her chest. But the basement was empty. The voice, calm, low, almost like it came from inside her head, was gone. She gripped her flashlight tighter, sweeping the beam across the room. Shadows danced across the cracked concrete. Pipes groaned above her. But nothing moved. Then her radio crackled. "Marissa, are you down there?" It was Officer Green. "We just found something in the shed out back. You need to see this." Her voice trembled as she replied, "Be there in 2." She backed away from the table, eyes never leaving the dollhouse. There was something deeply wrong about it. Too precise, too personal. Outside, the sun had dropped low behind the trees. Everything was soaked in dusk. Blue shadows stretching long across the grass as she crossed to the shed. Green stood with his arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't speak, just pointed. Inside, the floor had been pulled up. And beneath it, dozens of little shoes. Girls' shoes. Some clean, some stained. Different sizes, different colors. But all worn, all used. And beside them, in a rusted tin box, were dozens of photos. Marissa's fingers shook as she flipped through them. All young girls. All alone. All looking straight into the camera. Eyes wide. Faces stiff with fear. And one of them was Ava. She hadn't been found by chance. She had been left to be found. But by who? And why? And how many more were never found at all? Marissa didn't sleep that night. The image of Ava's terrified face stared back every time she closed her eyes. That photo, it wasn't just a record. It was a message. A moment captured by someone who wanted to remember or relive. The box of shoes. The buried evidence. It all pointed to one horrifying conclusion. This wasn't over. Ava had escaped something many others hadn't. But how? And why was she the one to survive? At 7:42 a.m., Marissa met Ava and her aunt at the hospital. Ava sat on the edge of the bed, clutching a soft purple blanket. Her face was paler than before, her eyes glassy. Marissa sat beside her gently. "Ava, you're safe now. Promise. But I need to ask you something. Just one thing." Ava looked up slowly. "Is he still coming?" That one question turned Marissa's blood cold. She leaned in, whispering, "Who? Ava." Ava didn't blink. "The man with the quiet shoes." Marissa stared, her voice barely holding. "What do you mean?" Ava pointed toward the window. "He used to wait there. He said if I ever talked, he'd find me." Marissa rushed to the window, nothing outside but a drizzle. Trees swaying. Still, she had the haunting sense someone had just been there. The hospital security footage was pulled immediately, and what they saw made every officer in that room go still. At 3:12 a.m., hours before Marissa arrived, a figure had appeared outside Ava's window. Tall, hooded, just standing there, watching. And when the nurse walked by with her cart, the figure slowly backed into the trees, without ever turning around, like he knew he'd been seen. They zoomed in on the footage frame by frame. The man's hood was low, but just beneath the edge, barely visible, was a scar. A long one, slashing from the side of his cheek to his neck. Detective Marissa felt her stomach twist. She'd seen that scar before, years ago, on a man named Caleb Murner, a former foster worker fired after several complaints of unsettling behavior, but no charges, no follow-up, just quietly removed and forgotten. Until now, she rushed back to the station, pulled the file. He used to work at the very group home Ava's biological mother had briefly stayed in before her overdose. And then another thread unraveled. Ava had never been reported missing because no one ever listed her as found. Her mother had died when Ava was 3, and the last case file placed her in temporary state custody. But then, she just disappeared from the system. No adoption record, no foster paperwork, no digital trail at all, as if she'd been wiped off the grid. How does a child just vanish from government care and reappear 5 years later, burying shoes in a stranger's backyard? Marissa muttered, flipping pages in disbelief. Her phone buzzed. It was the hospital. Ava was missing. She had vanished from her room without triggering a single alarm. The only sign left behind? A small folded paper beneath her pillow. 6 words, written in shaky, childish handwriting. He said I couldn't tell anyone. Detective Marissa's hands trembled as she held the note. He said I couldn't tell anyone. Her thoughts raced. Who was he? Where had Ava gone? Surveillance footage from the hospital showed nothing. No one entering, no one leaving. But at 3:17 a.m., the hallway lights had flickered. Just for a second. And Ava's room door? Slightly ajar afterward. It didn't make sense, unless someone knew the building's blind spots. She ordered a full search of the premises, starting with the basement. Dusty, unused, and mostly forgotten, it had been storage for years. But when they pushed past a rusted metal shelf, they found something chilling. A crawl space. Inside, blankets, wrappers, and a child's drawing taped to the wall. Stick figures, one tall, one small, both with excess for eyes. Written in red crayon. Don't scream. He hates it. Marissa's chest tightened. Ava had been here. Recently. And someone else had too. Back at the precinct, she reviewed the scarred man's file. Caleb Murner had legally changed his name in 2021 to Gavin Rourke. He'd moved 5 times in the past 2 years, always near hospitals, always near schools. And he'd applied for janitorial work at the hospital where Ava was last seen. No one had followed up on the application. No one noticed when a man matching his description was seen lingering around the emergency exit for days. But Marissa saw it now. This wasn't just a missing child. This was a pattern. And Ava was his loose end. The warehouse on the city's edge had been condemned for years. Locals said it was haunted. But to Detective Marissa, it was a last hope. Ava's crayon drawing had included one final detail. A number scrawled beneath the stick figures. 4,423. Marissa ran it through old city property records. One match, 4423, Blake Hollow Road. Abandoned since 1998. She didn't wait for backup. The air inside was thick with dust and something else. Fear. Her flashlight caught glimpses of old furniture, rusted chains, children's shoes, and in the far corner a makeshift door, nailed shut from the outside. She pried it open. The room inside was lined with insulation, egg crates, and blankets. And in the center, curled on a mattress, was Ava. She looked up, dazed. Whispered, "You came." Marissa dropped to her knees, but behind her, floorboards creaked. She spun around. Gavin Rourke stood at the doorway, smiling, holding something in his hand. A syringe. "You ruined everything," he hissed. Marissa didn't blink. "She's not yours." The struggle was fast. A scream, a gunshot, then silence. By the time backup arrived, Gavin lay motionless. And Ava, wrapped in Marissa's coat, held onto her hand like it was the only thing anchoring her to the world. Later, when Ava was safe in a recovery center, she drew one more picture. Two stick figures, this time smiling. Marissa and Ava. No more excess. Ava's testimony would lead to the discovery of two more hidden locations. More victims. More answers. And finally, justice. If you want more chilling true crime stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the Veil of Secrets.